Walk through Barcelona and the city hums like music. From the harbour to the hills, every street carries rhythm. Footsteps, voices, the echo of work and laughter. The sound drifts upward from narrow alleys and open markets, from tram lines and church bells, until it seems to settle above the rooftops like a low, constant note. Beneath that note lies a heartbeat. It has been there for more than a century, steady and proud, and it began with a dreamer. His name was Joan Gamper, a Swiss clerk who loved sport, who loved people, and who believed football could be a language. He arrived in Barcelona at the end of the 19th century, a time when the city was growing faster than it could breathe. Industry filled the air with smoke, ships lined the port, and cranes clawed at the skyline. Catalonia was alive, restless, searching for identity. Gamper felt it instantly. Here, he thought, the game might mean more. One evening in November of 1899, he placed a small notice in a local paper. For lovers of football, it read, "A meeting will be held." 11 men appeared. English, Catalan, Swiss, one German. They met in a rented room above a gymnasium on Montjuic Street. They spoke different languages, but shared one idea: to build something lasting. They called it Football Club Barcelona. The colours came from Gamper's homeland, blue and claret, borrowed from FC Basel. The shirts were stitched by hand. Their first ball was scuffed and heavy. They trained on open fields where children chased them between passes. When they played, there were no crowds, only friends, merchants, mechanics, a few students, drawn by curiosity. They played until dusk turned the grass to shadow, and they left laughing. Soon, the city began to notice. Football spread like song. By 1909, the team had a home ground on Cara Industria, wooden stands, a few thousand seats, and an iron gate that opened each Sunday to the sound of excitement. Crowds gathered early, carrying flags stitched at home, packed shoulder to shoulder. When the players emerged, colours glowing in the sun, the cheers felt like wind through the city. Gamper stood on the touchline, neat in his suit, notebook in hand. He believed a club should belong to its people. He organised matches, raised funds, spoke to newspapers, and wrote endlessly about values: humility, teamwork, respect. "We play not to win," he told them, "but to express who we are." By the 1910s, Barca was more than a pastime. It had become a reflection of Catalonia's spirit, open, creative, and proud. The crowd sang in Catalan, waved their flags, shouted, "Visca Barça! Visca Catalunya!" Each victory felt like proof that the people could shape their own story. The first stars arrived. Paulino Alcantara, the graceful striker from the Philippines, scored goals that seemed impossible. Josep Samitier, a local boy, played with daring acrobatics that made him the darling of the terraces. The team's style, short passes, clever movement, was unlike anything else in Spain. It was football with rhythm, football that danced. As the crowds grew, the club needed space. In 1922, Barcelona opened a new stadium, Les Corts, 20,000 seats under the open sky. On the first day, the gates could not hold the people. They filled the terraces, climbed fences, hung from lampposts. Brass bands played, confetti drifted on the breeze, And Gamper, older now, stood quietly watching. His dream had become real. But beneath the celebration was the faint tremor of change. Spain was shifting. Political tension crept into daily life. Gamper saw what was coming and grew tired. He stepped back, then returned, then stepped away again, always trying to protect what he had built. He spoke less of football now and more of family, of community. A club, he said softly, must always remember why it began. When the matches ended and the brass bands packed their instruments, the streets around Les Courts glowed with lamplight. Families walked home together, scarves around their necks, still singing. Inside the stadium, the noise faded into stillness. The seats were empty, but the air held a faint vibration, the kind that comes after music when silence feels alive. Barcelona was no longer a hobby or a gathering. It was a heartbeat, a symbol of belonging, of beauty shared. For now, the city was bright. The sky above Les Courts shimmered, and the crowd believed the light would last forever. The 1970s arrived with change in the air. Franco's dictatorship was weakening, and across Catalonia, the sense of something waiting to awaken grew stronger. The Camp Nou stood vast and watchful above the city, its terraces full each Sunday, its anthem still half-whispered. The club had survived repression, but now it needed rebirth. In 1973, a man stepped off the plane who would become that rebirth, Johan Cruyff. Tall, thin, sharp-minded, he carried with him the ideas that had reshaped football in Amsterdam: movement, intelligence, imagination. He came to Barcelona not just to play, but to teach. From the first match, people felt it. The ball moved differently. The team played with calm, with grace. Cruyff didn't just demand possession. He demanded understanding. When you have the ball, he told his teammates, the other team cannot score. It sounded simple. On the pitch, it was poetry. That season, Barcelona faced Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. Franco was still alive, his portrait still hanging in the stadium tunnel. The match began tense, then opened like a storm. Barcelona attacked with rhythm, with purpose, with joy. They won 5-0. The capital fell silent. In Catalonia, it felt like an exorcism. Decades of fear lifted in 90 minutes. Cruyff became an instant hero, but he cared little for adoration. He spoke instead about control, space, and responsibility. He told journalists that football was an art form, that it could express culture. Playing beautiful football, he said, is a moral duty. His teammates listened, even when they didn't always understand. Training changed. The ball was the center of everything. No long runs, no chaotic pressing, only thought, movement, rhythm. Cruyff demanded that every player, even defenders, think like creators. Barcelona finished the season as champions. Flags filled the streets, bands played, and the city's pulse returned to full strength. The dictatorship still ruled, but within those 90 minutes, Catalonia had found its voice again. Cruyff stayed 5 seasons. Injuries came, tempers flared, directors quarreled. He left in 1978, older but unbowed. Yet what he had given to the club was more than goals or trophies. He had given it a soul, His influence lingered. Young players at La Masia, the small farmhouse academy near the Camp Nou, began training with his ideas in mind. The coaches taught them to move, to pass, to think. The ball is never your enemy, they said. It's your oldest friend. When Franco died in 1975, the crowd at the Camp Nou sang the Catalan anthem openly for the first time in 40 years. Tens of thousands of voices joined as one. Some wept, some laughed. All felt the same release. The club and the people free again, finally allowed to be themselves. The years that followed were restless. Managers came and went. Titles slipped through their fingers. But the philosophy remained beneath the surface, like a quiet current, waiting to rise again. By the late 80s, Barcelona was both proud and uneasy. The Camp Nou was full, but the play felt mechanical. Supporters longed for the beauty they remembered, the balance between art and fight. Then, in 1988, he returned. Cruyff walked back through the doors of the Camp Nou, this time as manager. Older, more certain, carrying the same belief that football could express something higher than victory. "We will do it our way," he told the board, or not at all. From his first training session, everything changed. The players were told to think in shapes, to move like dancers in rhythm. "The ball," he said, "is faster than any man, so make it move." He began assembling his orchestra. Ronald Koeman, strong and calm. Michael Laudrup, elegance personified. Hristo Stoichkov, temper and fire. Pep Guardiola, a quiet student of geometry in the middle of it all. Together, they created something new. A team that played with patience, precision, and purpose. The newspapers called them the Dream Team. The name fit. Each match felt like choreography, space opening and closing as if controlled by invisible strings. The Camp Nou became theatre. In 1992, they reached the European Cup final at Wembley. The match was tight, the air heavy with tension. Then a free kick. Koeman struck. The ball bent and rose, then snapped into the net. The sound was half gasp, half scream. Barcelona were champions of Europe. That night, the streets of the city turned into rivers of light. Fireworks over the sea, flags on every balcony. Cruyff stood at the touchline, rain on his face, and smiled. Not pride, but peace. Under him, Barcelona won league after league. More importantly, they learned how to win beautifully. The players spoke of rhythm, of joy. "He made us see football differently," Guardiola said years later. "He made it human." But perfection has a cost. Cruyff fought with directors, argued with journalists, refused compromise. The very stubbornness that made him great became his undoing. In 1996, he was dismissed. The crowd wept, but even as he left, Cruyff knew the truth. His ideas had already taken root. They lived in the academy, in the minds of the next generation, and in the man who had listened most closely, Guardiola. When the stadium emptied that night, rain fell softly over the pitch. The lights dimmed one by one, yet the air still vibrated with something invisible. Not grief, but continuity. The lesson had been learned. Barcelona had discovered its philosophy: beauty as system, joy as method, belief as foundation. The early 90s were golden. The air above the Camp Nou shimmered each weekend with anticipation. The sound of drums rolled from the streets, blending with chants and church bells, until the whole city seemed to hum. Barcelona was no longer only a club, it was an idea that had found its form. And the dream team, under Johan Cruyff's design, was its living expression. Cruyff's men played football that felt alive. Every pass carried intention. Every movement answered another, as if the team shared a single mind. The midfield was an orchestra, the forwards a conversation, the defense a deep breath before another attack. For those watching, it was art in motion, disciplined yet free, graceful yet dangerous. Ronald Koeman, the general at the back, read the game like a book. Pep Guardiola, the young conductor in the center, dictated tempo with the calm of a monk. Michael Laudrup's elegance needed no words. He could turn with the ball as if the earth itself tilted for him. And Risto Stoichkov, all fire and fury, was the chaos that made perfection human. The city adored them. Painters sketched their likeness. Poets wrote of their rhythm. On match days, bars closed early so owners could join the roar. Strangers embraced in the terraces as though they had known each other all their lives. Barcelona was united by movement, by color, by belief. Cruyff demanded more than victory. He demanded understanding. If you play beautifully, he told his players, you will win. But winning without beauty is failure. It was philosophy disguised as sport. In 1991, they won the league. Then again in 92. Then again in 93. Then again in 94. 4 titles in a row. Yet the greatest moment had already arrived. The night at Wembley in 1992, when Koeman's thunderbolt made history. When the ball hit the net, it felt like the past exhaling. Decades of repression, struggle, and faith finding release in one clean strike. Cruyff raised his arms, and behind him, the bench erupted. In Barcelona, fireworks burst above the Ramblers, painting the sky blue and claret. That night, even the sea seemed to join the celebration, waves crashing like applause. The players said it didn't feel like football anymore. It felt like flow, like freedom. Sometimes, Guardiola said later, it was as if the ball wanted to move on its own. But time is relentless. After glory comes reflection, and after reflection comes change. The dream team began to show its cracks. Rivalries grew quiet but sharp. Laudrup, the artist, left after a disagreement. Stoichkov argued with officials, his fire too bright to contain. Injuries took their toll. In 1994, Barcelona reached another Champions League final, but this time fell to Milan. 4 goals to none. It was not just defeat. It was exhaustion. For years, Cruyff had pushed his players to create beauty. Now, the beauty had begun to consume them. Still, the memory of what they achieved lingered everywhere. Children on rooftops kicked makeshift balls, pretending to be Stoichkov or Koeman. Teenagers at La Masia trained in triangles, copying Guardiola's patience. Even the elderly in cafes spoke of that night at Wembley as if it were a family story passed down through generations. Cruyff walked the touchline slower now, smoking between matches, watching his creation struggle to breathe under its own perfection. He had become the artist haunted by his masterpiece. When results turned, the directors began to doubt him. But the supporters did not. To them, he was the one who had taught Barcelona to see itself clearly. In 1996, his time ended. The board dismissed him after disputes over transfers and control. The press reported chaos. The fans stood outside the Camp Nou for hours, candles in their hands. It felt like a funeral for an idea. Yet even in departure, Cruyff's influence deepened. He left behind not just trophies, but a philosophy woven into the club's DNA. He had proved that beauty could be a system, that football could be more than survival or spectacle. It could be identity. When he walked out of the stadium for the last time, a small group of supporters waited near the gate. They didn't shout or cry. They simply applauded as he passed, a quiet rhythm against the rain. Cruyff nodded once, smiled faintly, and disappeared into the night. Inside, the floodlights cooled. The pitch was empty except for the marks of boots and the faint smell of wet grass. Somewhere in that silence, the idea he planted continued to grow. Years later, Guardiola would say, "He didn't just change our football. He changed our way of seeing the world." That was the legacy of the Dream Team. More than trophies, more than victories, it was a way of thinking, a belief that joy, intelligence, and expression were not luxuries, but necessities. Barcelona would never be the same again. The seeds were buried deep now, waiting for the next bloom. And when the wind swept through the Camp Nou at night, the sound it carried wasn't sorrow. It was the whisper of a philosophy that refused to fade. The turn of the millennium brought a strange stillness to Barcelona. The stadium was full, the colors the same. Yet the rhythm that had once defined them seemed to falter. Managers came and went. Van Gaal, Serra Ferrer, Rexach, each trying to resurrect the music of Cruyff's dream team. But the melody wouldn't return. The club that had made beauty its doctrine found itself trapped in imitation. Still, beneath the surface, the soil was fertile. Down the hill from the Camp Nou, in a modest farmhouse called La Masia, the next generation was learning the old language. The walls were lined with photographs, Kubala, Cruyff, Guardiola, reminders that football here was inheritance, not fashion. Among the children training in the courtyard was a small, quiet boy from Rosario, Argentina, Lionel Messi. He barely spoke. His teammates remembered the way his head stayed down, his eyes fixed on the ball as if it were breathing. He dribbled past older players with impossible balance, not fast but fluid. Gravity seemed to bend around him. By the early 2000s, Messi was ready, though few noticed. He made his debut in 2004, 17 years old, hair unkempt, eyes calm. He scored his first goal the following spring, a chipped finish that floated into the net like something from a dream. The Camp Nou rose as one, not roaring, but gasping. They knew something extraordinary had arrived. The club itself was changing. Joan Laporta, a young, ambitious president, wanted to restore the values of Cruyff. He appointed a familiar disciple, Frank Rijkaard, and built a team of balance and beauty. Under him came Ronaldinho, all joy and swagger, a smile that felt like sunlight. He taught the club to laugh again, to play with love. Barcelona lifted the Champions League in 2006, and the streets filled with singing. But time moves quickly here. As Ronaldinho's magic began to fade, Messi's rose. He watched, learned, and soon surpassed. The student had become something else entirely, not air, but revelation. Then, in 2008, Pep Guardiola returned. No longer the boy in Cruyff's midfield, but the thinker who would perfect his mentor's vision. His first day as manager, he stood before the players and said simply, "We will go back to ourselves." He meant back to purity, to the ball, to beauty. Training became meditation. Every pass was a heartbeat, every movement part of a living organism. "If we have the ball," he told them, "they cannot hurt us." Under Guardiola, the game slowed and sharpened at once. Xavi controlled tempo like a metronome. Iniesta added grace and courage. Busquets made defense look like art. And Messi, the quiet boy from Rosario, became the center of gravity. Between 2009 and 2011, Barcelona reached something close to perfection. They won everything: League, Cup, Champions League, 6 trophies in a single year. Yet what mattered wasn't the silver. It was the serenity. Their football wasn't aggression. It was control, patience, trust. They moved as one body, one breath. The world watched in awe. Commentators stopped analyzing and began admiring. "This," one wrote, "is not football." Its Symphony Guardiola's team didn't just dominate opponents, they disarmed them with beauty. The defining moment came at Wembley in 2011, the same stadium where Cruyff's dream team had made history, the same city where art had first met achievement. Against Manchester United, Barcelona danced. Passes looped, triangles bloomed, and the opposition chased shadows. Messi, small and unhurried, glided through the center and struck from distance. Low, sharp, inevitable. The net rippled. Guardiola smiled, closed his eyes, and whispered, "Perfection." When the whistle blew, players embraced quietly, as though afraid to disturb the silence of something sacred. Even the English crowd applauded. Sir Alex Ferguson later said, "It's the best team I've ever faced." That night, Barcelona didn't just win, they transcended. The dream of Gamper, the philosophy of Cruyff, the mind of Guardiola, the soul of Messi, all converged into one luminous moment. It was beauty made tangible. But perfection, like all things, carries a cost. The effort to sustain it became heavy. Guardiola, ever the perfectionist, began to fade under its weight. The joy dimmed, replaced by fatigue. In 2012, he stepped away, leaving behind a doctrine, not a tactic. Barcelona continued under Tito Villanova, who carried Pep's spirit with gentleness. Even as illness shadowed him, his team played with compassion, football as kindness. Under Luis Enrique, the rhythm shifted again, faster, more direct, but still guided by the same pulse. A new trident emerged: Messi, Neymar, and Suarez. 3 artists from 3 worlds, speaking the same language of motion and instinct. Together, they brought back chaos, the wild side of beauty. In 2015, they conquered Europe again in Berlin. The goals flowed, the joy returned. Messi was 30 now, but still played like a boy. Head down, body swaying, balance perfect. His numbers broke records, but numbers never defined him. His gift was emotional, the hush before his dribble, the collective breath of expectation. He didn't just play football, he made time behave differently. When he scored, he didn't roar. He lifted his face to the lights, calm, almost shy, as if the act itself embarrassed him. For 17 years, he made the extraordinary seem routine. The child from Rosario became a symbol of the city, of the dream, of what devotion could create. Guardiola once said, "Don't watch the ball. Watch the player who isn't touching it." Messi was both. He was the movement and the stillness, the origin and the outcome. By the decade's end, Barcelona had become both myth and memory. Their style had changed football forever. Every academy in the world now taught possession, patience, intelligence. The echo of their rhythm reached from Catalonia to Cairo to California. But behind the glory, the strain showed. Money crept in, politics thickened. The beauty that once came from love began to look like burden. The players aged, the system frayed, and the story, as always, began to turn. Yet for a time, they had touched the impossible, and the world would remember. When the lights dimmed after that last great final, and the crowd's cheers faded into sea wind, the Camp Nou stood glowing against the night. The proof that for one golden era, perfection was not theory, but real. Every golden age carries its own warning, that beauty, once perfected, begins to fade. After the triumph in Berlin, Barcelona looked untouchable. The Camp Nou glittered under the Mediterranean sun, its stands overflowing with flags, drums, and songs. Messi still glided, Suarez still smiled. Neymar turned chaos into light. For a moment, it seemed the dream might never end. But perfection is a weight, and slowly, quietly, the club began to bend beneath it. Football itself was changing. Money had replaced meaning. Agents replaced loyalty. Clubs became empires, and empires demanded profit. The very purity that had defined Barcelona now left it vulnerable. To stay among the giants, it had to become one. At first, the cracks were small. A questionable transfer here, an executive scandal there. But the rhythm faltered. Matches that once flowed like poetry became tense, mechanical. The beauty was still there. Flashes of Messi's brilliance, Busquets' calm, the crowd's reverence. But it no longer felt effortless. Then, in the summer of 2017, came a rupture. Neymar was gone. To Paris, to money, to a world beyond philosophy. His transfer fee was so enormous, it made headlines across the globe. But what hurt wasn't the number. It was the message that even joy could be sold. Messi stayed, carrying the club on his shoulders. The goals came, the trophies too. But his smile faded. Around him, the orchestra had lost its tune. Managers came and went. Valverde, Setien, Koeman, each trying to coax harmony from exhaustion. The boardroom grew restless. The politics louder than the football. Outside the stadium, fans still gathered, but the mood had changed. Anger mixed with nostalgia. "We used to play with our hearts," one man said. "Now we play with our debts." The numbers were staggering. Billions owed, wages swollen, the club gasping under its own success. Still, there were nights when the old magic returned. Messi curling a free kick into the top corner, the crowd roaring, the moment eternal. But even then, something felt fragile, as if the sound might break. Then came the pandemic, 2020. The gates of the Camp Nou locked, the seats stood empty. The cathedral was silent for the first time in living memory. No chants, no laughter, only the hum of floodlights and the whisper of wind. When matches resumed behind closed doors, the silence was unbearable. You could hear the players' shouts, the ball striking leather, the echo of absence, and then the unthinkable, Messi's departure. Years of mismanagement, greed, and arrogance had cornered the club. Even the greatest could no longer be afforded. One August afternoon, he faced the press, eyes red, voice trembling. "I gave everything," he said. "This is not goodbye. Only see you soon." The city wept. Outside the stadium, thousands stood molded in the rain, holding candles and flags. They didn't chant his name. They whispered it. They knew what he had been. Not just a player, but a vessel for something greater. After he left, the emptiness was physical. The Camp Nou felt hollow, its seats like open wounds. The team stumbled, the debts deepened, and rivals mocked. But from the cracks, something young began to grow. Pedri, Gavi, Ansu Fati. New faces, fearless, still playing with wonder. They were not yet great, but they carried something sacred, innocence. The same innocence that once moved Gamper to dream, Cruyff to teach, Guardiola to perfect, Messi to inspire. Watching them was like seeing the club remember itself. Above them, cranes surrounded the stadium. Steel beams rose, dust filled the air. The Camp Nou was being torn apart and remade, not destroyed, only renewed. On construction days, the workers said they could hear echoes of old matches, faint and distant, like a ghost applauding. Inside, Xavi Hernandez returned. Once the student, now the teacher. He spoke softly, as Guardiola once had, about patience, about possession, about faith. "We must find our soul again," he told his players. "We must play the way Barcelona breathes." The results came slowly, but the feeling returned first. One-touch football, courage, the crowd singing with pride rather than memory. The club's future remained uncertain, financially fragile, politically chaotic. But something more important had been restored: belief. Barcelona had been many things: defiance, beauty, perfection, despair. But it had never known surrender. Every fall had been followed by a renewal, every silence by a song. When rain falls over the empty stands now, it sounds like applause. The droplets strike metal and concrete in rhythm, patient and familiar. Beneath that rhythm, if you listen closely, you can still hear the ghosts: Gamper, Cruyff, Guardiola, Messi, walking through the mist. The decline was not an ending. It was a transformation. The light had dimmed, but it had not died. It had simply learned to glow differently, softer, steadier, more human. And somewhere beneath the scaffolding, beneath the new foundations rising from old earth, the heart of the club still beats, slow, proud, eternal. Night falls softly over the Mediterranean. From the hills above the city, the lights of Barcelona spill outward like constellations, golden and unbroken, as though the stars have settled close to Earth. Somewhere within that glow stands the Camp Nou, silent, surrounded by cranes, its empty terraces draped in scaffolding and light. Even in stillness, it hums. A century of songs, footsteps, and dreams lingers in its walls, echoing through the steel like memory that refuses to fade. The streets below are quieter now. Cafes close their shutters, and scooters murmur through the rain. Yet the heartbeat of the city continues, steady and familiar, just as it did in Gamper's time. Barcelona has changed beyond recognition, but its soul somehow feels the same. The rhythm of a ball against stone, the laughter of children playing in narrow alleys, the sudden cheer from a bar when an old match plays on TV. It's all part of the same story. Inside the empty stadium, ghosts walk. Cruyff, smiling in defiance. Guardiola, calm, hands clasped behind his back. Messi, head down, gliding silently across an invisible pitch. Their presence feels real, not haunting, but protective. The guardians of a legacy that has outlived them all. Every era leaves something behind. Gamper left faith, Cruyff left wisdom, Guardiola left order, Messi left wonder. Each of them, in their own way, taught the same lesson, that beauty, courage, and belief can outlast time. Outside, the rain thickens. Droplets roll down glass, soft as applause. The city breathes. Above the construction noise and sea wind, you can almost hear the faint murmur of an anthem, carried not by instruments, but by memory. Soon, the new stadium will open, bigger, brighter, more modern. But beneath its polished surface, the old foundations remain. Every beam and seat will rest on the same soil that held Gamper's dream, the same ground where children first kicked a ball, the same echo that has carried through war, dictatorship, triumph, and heartbreak. Imagine that first night, the lights warming to life, the crowd returning, scarves lifted against the sky, the anthem rising, not loud but full, sung by generations who know every word. In that moment, all of history will feel present. The founder's hope, the exile's courage, the artist's touch, the captain's command, the boy's impossible dribble. Football will always move forward. Players will come and go, victories will fade, and even legends will grow distant. But Barcelona is not built on moments. It is built on meaning. It has survived because it stands for something larger than itself. The belief that sport, at its purest, can express the human spirit. That belief hums through the city still, in the rain hitting rooftops, in the laughter of crowds spilling out of metro stations, in the flags that wave from balconies, faded but proud. Even when there are no matches, Barcelona continues. A story told through generations, a song that never truly ends. When the new Camp Nou opens, the world will see glass and light, but those who know will see something deeper, the reflection of 100 years of devotion, the faces of those who built it, played in it, sang within it, the quiet resilience of a people who turned a game into identity. And when the final whistle of that first match sounds and the crowd rises to leave, a few will stay behind, as they always do, standing still as the lights dim, listening to the hum beneath the concrete. The heartbeat will still be there. It always will be. Because Barcelona is not a team. It is a conversation across time, between the founders and the future, between those who believed and those who will.